brother. I think I've seen him someplace on television, but Brother Roland Martin, we want to welcome him to our session. Apparently he has a student here, and we appreciate them taking an opportunity to come and cover us. I also wanted to just remind you that we're going to have questions and answers after Susan's presentation. That will be the final presentation. And as I indicated to you earlier, Dr. Laura House will be coordinating that session. She's going to be passing out very shortly cue cards. You can write the questions on, and then we'll collect them. Secondly, I forgot to say in introducing Dr. House that in the National Association of our Social Workers, we have what's called a mentorship project. We call it the JEGDA project. And the person who came to us with that notion was Dr. Laura House. She was attending one of our sessions in Houston. And at the conclusion of the session of the conference, she was bewildered by the elders who were all leadership positions. And the question became, how are we going to transfer this leadership to the next generation? So I said, well, you come to our quarterly meeting tomorrow morning, closing meeting, and you present it to the organization leadership. She presented it to us, and she and Sister Rosalind Prudhomme developed our mentorship project. And I wanted to say it in the presence of Sister Susan Taylor so that she will know that her spirit resonated with us sometime back in 1987, 88, or sometime like that. We also, Susan and I was in Atlanta 2 days ago, and I went to pick up my granddaughter, and there's a door next to her school, is a black Montessori school, that has your organization leadership name on it. So I don't know if you know exactly where this is. It's in Southwest Atlanta.
Maybe Brown Middle School?
Yes. Yeah. Brown Middle School. Look, forgive this Negro for being like he is. But Brown Middle School is where my son teaches. And he chose to teach in Southwest Atlanta because of its reputation. And I was at his school this past Thursday. And pardon me for pushing out my chest. But his class, 78% of his students just passed their reading and comprehension test. It's the first time in 40 years that school has had that evaluation. And he comes out of, I lift him up because first of all, I'm proud. But secondly, that's what his mother put into him. That was not this Negro. He has decided that he will not teach in any other setting other than a public school, and this is going to be a commercial, not a charter school. Okay. 1. 2, it has to be in the black community. He started out in the South Bronx, he taught there for 5 years, moved to Brownsville section of Brooklyn for 5 years, then moved to DeKalb County. He got tired of the Negroes in DeKalb County. Now they want to go into the inner city, but they wouldn't hire him. But the Creator has a way of bringing everything together. Am I right? Yes. His friend who taught with him in DeKalb County got a job in the Atlanta public school system. She brought him in 2 years ago. And now I met with the principal on Thursday, and they're lifting this young brother up. Now the reason he's not going to move up is because he's got a 4-year-old daughter. So he's trying to stay away from administrative positions so he can spend quality time with them. But I wanted to tell Susan that her name is splattered all across the universe. Laura, thank you so much. Brother Chester, it's your time, my brother. For those who came in late, this is Brother Chester Marshall, and you'll see on the program pretty much his bio. This brother's from Chicago. For those of you who are from Chicago, he's a former Marine. I always say Marine because he's disciplined. Those of us who came out of the military back in the day, we knew what our role was as African men. And this brother I am extraordinarily proud of. Without further ado, Brother Chester Marshall.
Thank you, Bob. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Without the good morning to everybody, and I'm glad that you are here. I'm glad that I'm here. I've been asked to talk about black male development. My organization, Institute for African Man Development in Washington, D.C. does just that. We specialize in working with African American men and boys and their families. And it doesn't do us any good to just talk about developing men. We're talking about developing men so that they can be better fathers, better husbands, and better leaders in the community. And tie it into making African American men family ready. Because let's face it, some of our brothers are not family ready. They don't know how to participate in reciprocal relationships. And so part of what our organization does is try to help and develop African American men. I won't be long, so I will help us catch up. But I wanted to make some points. The first thing is, if you will notice, how many of you all know at least one African American man that's struggling in some way? Right? Yep. Now that, you have your down and outers and your up and outers, right? Yep. So, just because you have a suit on doesn't mean you're not struggling, right? It could be the worst day of your life. So if you notice, a lot of the brothers that are struggling the most is because they are disconnected from the elements of their life that should sustain them. They're disconnected from the elements of their life that should sustain them. School, community, even disconnected from themselves. However, it is those brothers that are disconnected from their families that are doing the worst. Think about it. Think about it. Now, have y'all heard that saying, he done told his oomph with everybody? You've heard that? I'm not going to say what it really is. Got nowhere to go back to. When you got nowhere to go back to, that's the worst possible scenario that African American men can be in. So how is it that we get brothers family ready? In context, you all, we have to understand something, that African conscious and morally developed African American men are not born. They have to be nurtured and formed. There is a deliberate process that you have to put into getting brothers ready to participate in family. It doesn't just happen. Yes? Amen? Amen. Boys don't claim manhood. Be very clear. There's a lot of emancipated boys who are assuming men's roles, if you understand what I'm saying. Now, what is emancipated boy? Somebody tell me what an emancipated boy is.
A certain age?
Yes, ma'am. Nana, he's a certain age. He's of the age where he should be a man, but he doesn't possess the intuitive sensibilities to be a man. And so we have a lot of those around, right? And so understand that that person is really not a man, but he's an emancipated boy. And how do we get him from one point to the next point? The compelling question is not, when did you become a man? The compelling question is, who gave you permission to be a man? What tribe did you interact with that prepared you to be a man? It's not just that you're 18 years old. How many of y'all said, I'm 18 years old, I can't wait to get out of the house because I'm going to be a man, right? And then when you get 18 years old, you have to pay that first bill. You say, I'm going back home, right? Because just beating your chest saying that you're a man or saying it doesn't get it, does it? Amen? That's right. Okay, another principle. You become men, or we become men, when conscious elder men tell us that we're ready. And we're ready when we're able to take on the responsibilities of the mandates of culture. And those are the responsibilities that we put on every man in our community. We develop men so they can be better husbands, better fathers, and better teachers. You don't just develop yourself just so you can be a good dude, right? You want to be a better father, a better husband, and a better teacher. In an African context, every man has a place and a purpose. In elderhood, he becomes a guide and a way shower for other men. And I'm just going by my notes because I talk too much. That's by way of confession. If I don't use my notes, Baba, I'll be all over the place. And just coincidentally, my struggle in my life as a young man in Chicago, I didn't really start to develop my manhood until I left Chicago. And that's the story for a lot of brothers in Chicago. Amen, all of my Chicago people. You leave you leave the context in which you grew up, because I know for a fact at 59 years old that if I'd have stayed in Chicago, I would not have survived. I know that clearly. I would not have been here today. So had to join the Marine Corps, joined the Marine Corps, and I decided, I don't know how I really came to the point where I said, okay, I want to help other people. I know it's because I once needed help. That's how I really started to believe or think that I wanted to be in the helping profession, because for most of my young life, I needed help. Yes? And so I took, or shouldn't say took, I learned my manhood from a lot of brothers that I observed. And one of those brothers is Baba Dunston there. Just, you know, I can't say enough about him. A man's man. You know, he really is a black man's black man. And oftentimes, if you just be quiet and listen, you learn a lot. Amen? Yep, listen. You know, 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? Talk half as much, listen twice as much, right? And so I listened and I learned a lot from this brother as far as my mandates. What are my mandates to be a man? And certainly, we want to prepare other brothers so that they are in a position when they become an elder to teach other boys and men how to be men, because it is not a deliberate process. I used to do, in my social work career, I used to do child abuse and neglect investigations. And one of the single most destabilizing effects of every family, or most families that we interacted with, was some disconnected, out of control male, either a boy or a man, right? And so the question becomes, how do we change that? Let's talk about family. Our esteemed brother and scholar, Dr. Wade Nobles, he suggested to us that the black family should be seen, or is best seen, as embedded in a Euro-American context. It is best seen as embedded in a Euro-American context, but it gets its shape and form from its African origin. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that while we have been here in America, we still have these retentions from Africa. African root, American fruit. African by nature, American by nurture. And so I want to introduce or reintroduce you to a term that we use in Afrocentric world all the time. It's called our way. You've heard that, yes? Our way. Now, if you notice that some of us operate outside of our way. In fact, some of us have become unrecognizable to the rest of us. And some of those people might be your neighbors, amen? Or might be people that you teach, where you teach at, or people where you work at. It's like, wow, we've gone so far off of our square that we can't recognize. Naeem Akbar says we've mistaken our own identity, not understanding how far off of our square we've gotten. And I think we have what it takes to get back to that. Now, even though we have gotten off our square, would you all agree that there still exists in our families and in our communities this sometimes unrecognizable Africanity, right? We still take care of each other. We still look out for each other. We still have those old ways that we go about doing things, right? See, because back in the day, we used to do, in social work, Nana Tony, we did adoptions, but we didn't call it adoptions. You know, we take your kids, you know, and you get them back when you get yourself together, but we didn't call it kinship care. We just took your kids, right? And you get them back when you get yourself together. So we have this divine cultural script for how we need to take care of ourselves that was given to us just because we're African descendant. It's given to us. We understand that at a high level, and we're still doing that. We're still doing it. How many of y'all feed other people's kids? Amen? How many of y'all was raised with somebody that you called your brother, but it was really your cousin Pookie? Right? Or it just wasn't no kin to you at all. Now some of y'all social workers, y'all go in houses, and one brother is light-skinned and one is dark-skinned. What y'all laugh? They got the same daddy. Y'all try to ask them social work questions to get to, no. Your family is who you say your family is. Amen? That's right. And we sometimes go overboard, don't we, Dr. Laura? All right, so I said I wasn't going to talk long because I want to kind of leave you with some things that I believe will help the disconnected brothers come back and become what we call family ready. It is really, really critically important to understand how to participate in reciprocity in relationships. And there are some people that are just takers. They just are takers. They're energy thieves. They'll take your energy. They'll take your dreams out your head. They'll take anything that you're given, but are not given anything. Amen? And there's too many of us out there in the community that's doing that. So how is it that we bring brothers back? Number one, by helping them commit to self-development. Have you ever met people that just says, that's just how I am? Now, what does that mean? What does that really mean? I'm not going to change. It's like, take it or leave it, right? Now, that's really a cop-out, isn't it? That's not good, right? We got to get brothers thinking in terms of, okay, what can I do to become a better man? Now, a lot of people are destructive and don't even know it. How many of y'all have seen people that are really, really obnoxious, but they don't know it? If you ask them, they'll say, I'm a good guy, right? I'm a pretty good dude, right? But you ask everybody else, it's like, this is the most obnoxious dude that you ever want to meet in your life. Just totally blind to themselves. They're not committed to self-development. We have to be committed to self-development. Number two, you have to be committed to nation building. What does nation building mean? It means understanding that there's nothing that you do that just affects you. I'm in D.C. If I do something really god-awful, my family's going to hear about it in Chicago. Somebody's going to call somebody, right? Now, how many of y'all, if I threatened to call your mother, you would get straight, right? That still happens, right? I'm going to call your mother. You get right straight because you realize that the things that you do wherever you are affects not only you, but it affects other people. How do we get brothers committed to nation building? Because there was a time in our community where the individual and the community priorities were not separate. It's like anything that I do to develop myself is so that I can develop my family and develop my community. We live in a me culture, unfortunately. That individual stuff is being pushed at us in all different directions. And that is one of the very things that is really tearing the fabric of our communities and families down. Number three, be committed to the notion of family. Let's talk about that for a minute. It would seem natural that if you came out of a family that you would be committed to the notion of family. However, some people's version of family is not the kind of version of family that we're talking about. Some people came out of some really, really interesting dynamics in their family. So they're not necessarily committed to the notion of a family who nurtures children to be soldiers and revolutionaries, right? Now here's one that's going to get me in trouble. Number four, being committed to twin soul development. Has anybody ever heard that concept? It's a Dogon concept. Yes, ma'am. Dogon concept, twin soul development. It simply says that there's a higher and a lower self. It simply says that everybody, we talk about this distinct maleness and this distinct femaleness. And that, we talk, how many of y'all heard women are emotional and guys are rational? Now look, how many of you know that's just not true? There's a lot of guys that are extremely emotional. In fact, some of them probably whine a little bit too much, right? Amen? Yes, yeah, amen, right. Yeah, they're probably on the extreme side, right? Well, there's a reason for that because naturally we are all emotional and rational. We all